MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey, hey!
Back, man.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition. Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF. I'm Guy. That's John. And we are live on YouTube. Or maybe you're watching this not live on YouTube. But either way, if you're on YouTube, good to see you. Good to be seen. Hit that like button. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Comment for the algorithm. That's all appreciated very much.
Algo that bleep.
Your mic might be a hair hot.
Hot.
If you are listening to the podcast, thank you for that as well. Share it with your friends. Share it with your enemies. And hit us with a 5-star review maybe on Apple Podcasts. Somebody DM me today, said, how do I ask a question? I said, best ways to ask a question, either get in the live chat on YouTube or hit us with a question in the Apple Podcast review. We appreciate that as well.
How's my mic now?
Good. Sounds good. People tell us if John sounds too high, too low, whatever, but that sounds good. Sounds good to me, at least. We sound even. That's the key. I'm just on the internet watching some videos, John. Before I tell you about the videos I'm watching, let me tell you about Tito's handmade vodka. Rumor on the streets is we might be on the golf course Friday, and we will be there. We got a spot for Tito's. Well, that kiss was Mike picked up that sound. That was John kissing his football helmet. His Tito's. All right. His Tito's.
God family football, guy. God family football.
That's right, man. That's what we should change the name of this podcast to. Tito's handmade vodka sponsors the show.
You laugh at me, guy, but this football helmet represents my life. Without football and without Tito's, would I have any money and would I be able to survive? Who knows what I'd be doing for a living? Digging ditches, selling insurance, selling cars. I don't know. So I will gladly kiss just a great looking Shoots helmet because I love Tito's. And might have a Tito's and soda tonight watching the Chiefs Chargers, which, what a game. What a fantastic ball game.
It's
at Arrowhead.
For Amazon Prime's debut. I know they had the preseason game, but that's a hell of a game. We're recording this before that game. But that's a hell of a game. Tito's handmade vodka. So many great recipe options out there. Just go to titosvodka.com. If you want to spruce it up a little bit, maybe we should try what was it the other day? The electric infusion, which was the Fresca, a little splash of grape and some Tito's. I like the ginger beer. Big fan of the Trader Joe's ginger beer. Reed's. You can get it other places, but it's much cheaper at Trader Joe's. The Reed's, some ice, and I
had a rough experience the other day at Trader Joe's. Not going to lie.
What happened? Well, hold on. Tito's handmade vodka, distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
Yeah, get on it. Maria went to go shopping, brought back dinner, and we were going to make some chickens, and the chickens were rotten.
Oh, like saran, like kind of the chicken saran, like chicken breast or something like that.
Yeah, just like a full chicken that we, it was raw. Obviously, it had to be cooked, but it
was like the one that was flavored, the spatchcock.
No, it had like a thigh and a little breast. It was like a half chicken, maybe.
Gotcha.
2 half chickens, and they were both raw.
Damn.
Raw would be the wrong word. They were both. It felt like rotten.
Meat was bad.
Smell was pretty terrible, so we threw them away.
They don't sponsor this show, so that'll never happen with a bottle of Tito's. I can promise you.
No, ever.
We are also sponsored by DraftKings. DraftKings. Right now, week 2 of the NFL season. Big plays, even bigger wins with DraftKings Sportsbook. Here's what you do. New customers, you sign up with the code HAM. You bet $5 on any football game and get $200 in free bets instantly. That's right. You bet $5 on any football game. You get $200 in free bets right away.
Guy, do you know what's really simple? Like it doesn't get any more simple. This Sunday, bet on any NFL team to win. If your team leads by 10 points, think about some of the teams last week. The Titans, winner, even though they lost. The 49ers, winner, even though they lost. All they ever have to do throughout the game is lead by 10 points, and you get paid instantly. How do you beat that? You do not need the team to cover. You do not even need the team to win. If they just lead by 10 points, boom, bang, money for you. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code HAM and get $200 in free bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's code HAM only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the National Football League. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
Chance on the stream asks, is Juszczyk listening by the pool again today? I had several people DM me a video and they said, is that your voice? I was like, well, I don't even know what this is. It was a story. Let's just say there is a top 100 player who may listen to the podcast while working out in the pool. I'm not going to say.
Would you consider him Mr. Irrelevant in the top 100?
Because he was number 100?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I hadn't thought about it like that.
You know what's funny is I DM'd him.
The top 100, they start with number 100, you know.
Yeah, true.
So like Mr. Relevant, who's like, everyone is checked out.
Yeah, good point. You know what's crazy? And it was clearly your voice. I was so confused. Not when people forwarded it to me, but when you forwarded it to me. And because I texted him like, damn, watching the Fresno State game. And I don't know why, because clearly a couple days later, but because it was you saying Hainer. So I just assumed, but I didn't realize it was you. I just heard Hainer. I'm like, damn, cool. He's watching the Fresno State game on an outdoor pool like a couple days later. Don't blame him. Good game. Yeah, that's not what you just, a loyal listener.
Yeah, he came on last year, said promo code Ham. You know, people always come up to you and tell you they listen, but anyway, shout out to Mozzarella.
We're big supporters of the fullback community.
Yeah, we are. You know, I watched Josh Allen's debut start and Patrick Mahomes' first week 1 start, and both times, was it Daboll? Was Daboll there that long in Buffalo?
Yeah.
Josh's rookie year, and obviously Andy Reid. Both debuts schemed the fullback wide open for the quarterback. Both debuts. Both teams had fullbacks.
Bills win that game?
Bills did not. Bills got their ass kicked by the Chargers, who had just lost the week before to the Chiefs. So Rivers actually played Mahomes week 1 and Josh Allen week 2 in 2018. Pretty cool.
Didn't the Chiefs score like 60? Didn't they destroy the Chargers?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, they were up. It was one of those classic Charger games where it's like 4 minutes left, down two touchdowns and two 2-point conversions away. Phillip Rivers is slinging it all over the place. You know, it was a nice walk down memory lane.
Wasn't that at the Office Depot Center?
I thought it was a Chiefs home game, but I might be wrong about that. I was just fast forwarding through. Maybe it was.
The game was in San Diego. I'm pretty sure it was Office Depot Center. Or it would have been the last year in San Diego.
San Diego?
It's kind of sad that San Diego doesn't get any more NFL games.
I know. It is.
Sad deal.
Question on the stream. Did you guys see the Trey Lance making it rain on some strippers? Brian, that was then Brian says, do you think Trey had some Tito's while making it rain? We did see the video.
I make it rain. I make it rain on them hoes. I make it rain. I make it rain.
For those of you who haven't seen it yet, it was looks like house party.
Yeah.
Strippers. A lot of people there. And money flying all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
When it was hard to say. We're in the early stages of the internet sleuthing on that video, I guess.
Yeah, we got a lot of information to come out. I think it is fair to say, having been to my fair share of stripper interactions, only a couple at a home, that is a lot. And that's a lot of money. So I think it's fair to say that's not North Dakota State. When he was at North Dakota State, remember, too, NILs were not flowing. I think it's fair to say that was NFL time. My number one take is how little I give a shit. I saw on Twitter some people comparing Jimmy Pornstar this. I think they are dramatically different, taking a porn star out and being at a party with strippers.
Because of the public element, or because you shouldn't have to take the porn star to dinner?
I just think I just think taking a porn star, specifically that one, if she had been some dime, he would have got some credit. She by no means is a dime. She literally has a daughter that's also in porn. I think we also kind of weirdly judged Jimmy, which universally agreed upon. Moms, daughters, wives, girlfriends, men. Jimmy is a beautiful man. One, if he doesn't need to take a porn star out, but if he did, he should have the hottest porn star. That is by no means that. To me, the Trey thing is young guys in general, have parties with strippers. A lot of cash there. I mean, that's a good, if you're a stripper, you want to get involved with NFL guys, money flows.
It's another reminder that you learn from your own situations, not other people's situations. And I think the lesson there is there nobody around Trey Lance that just says, hey guys, we're not here. No one here is filming Trey Lance. Okay. No one here gets to film Trey Lance. Put your cameras on. That's Trey Lance.
I guess my pushback on that, like, obviously you would not want it to be filmed. There should be I was going to say get back guy, but just someone
Definitely
there.
a get back guy. Yeah, 100% a get back guy.
Did get filmed? Like, does it matter one iota? Like, does anyone have an opinion like this is not allowed?
There's a million things in life that really don't matter, but it's one of these like death by 1,000 cuts. It's just another inconvenience that he's got to look at that on his phone today and text somebody like, yeah, sorry, mom, whatever. It's just one thing that he has to deal with in a very small way. That's, I don't even want to go so far as to call it a distraction. I'm not even sure it's that, but it's not a nothing thing. It's not about addressing it with the media or the fans or whatever, but it's just ideally you could just focus on football and you are protected from even having to have September 15th, 2022, when that thing hits the internet. That's all. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between real problems and like not a problem. And it's nobody would choose to have that out there, right?
No one would choose to have that out there. Yes.
Just
except Pac-Man.
That's my basic thing. Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. You're right. Some people would choose to have it out there. But
I think it would have helped the cause if like McGlinchey or someone like
one of those guys
expect like, oh damn, Robbie Gold. It would have eased the tension.
Yeah,
but it's like one, is he going rogue? Where are his teammates?
Ooh, good question, John.
And two,
why were none of his teammates there with him?
I really think those chicks cleaned up. You see how many ones were on the ground? Holy cannoli!
Assuming they were ones, right?
Yeah, assuming there might have been some 5s, 10s, and maybe a 20s in there.
Yeah. How about
could have been a bachelor party?
Yeah, it was a big party. The funny thing to me about the video too is like there's strippers, and then there's just other people having a conversation 3 feet away, which I guess is I've been watching.
Happens at a strip club.
Yeah, it's just in a home. It's a little different than at a strip club. There's just strippers going on right there, and somebody else just having a conversation about his work week right over there.
Could have been like some undercover club. I'm not a big club guy, but if you told me that actually is a club, we're on the side this and that size this, like
you
never know.
Could have been. It looked like a house, but you're right, maybe it wasn't.
But I'm saying the house, like it's like a club that's built
right.
like a something like that.
Yeah. It's like a COVID club.
Yeah. COVID's still a thing, or?
Well, maybe somewhere along the way, somebody had to make a club out of their house, and they just kept it rolling.
True. Yeah.
Some club owner
that's
what
shut
me down. But you can come over to 816 Pine Ave.
Feels old. It does feel old. I don't know why. It just doesn't feel new.
Yeah. The bada bing.
But who knows? I mean, I don't know why I think that. That was my first
reaction.
No,
you're just using context clues and trying to see is that like a glow in the dark poster on the wall? So
if he would have had that stupid outfit that he wore to the game, then it would have been
the bucket hat. You're not down with.
Listen, I think we all have different tastes, and I'm 37, he's 22, but like Russell was dumb, not because like the suit didn't fit well, and like it was like, what's he trying to do with a bow tie, right? It wasn't because like the suit was like, what, Trey? What the fuck is that?
I'll give you a theory that I think sometimes what happens is you get money. Other people who have money help you understand how to use your money. And I think personal shoppers come into play a lot, like stylists. And no stylist has ever gotten famous for like putting a guy in a Navy 2-piece, like stylist.
Yeah, like, hey, here's a Nike polo and a pullover.
Yeah, like here's some jeans and, blue blazer. So the stylist wants to show like, you're going to stand out here. It's going to help you can get some endorsements or whatever, because you're going to get a lot of attention. Worked for Cam Newton, got a lot of attention. Whoever Cam's hat guy was probably made a lot of money. Because I'm just saying, like, my guess is I don't think he went to Nordstrom's and picked that out. I bet he has a stylist or a personal shopper. And they just, hey, Trey. And he's like, cool, whatever. You're in that world.
I'm in agreement. I would, if I was recommending to Trey, I would fire that and try to move on and find someone else. I also think for as much fun as
I would just wear
Cam with the hats,
just hoodies.
I felt like Cam's outfits pulled him off a little bit better than whatever Trey attempted to.
Yeah, that one, Johnny's young. He's finding his style. I don't think you really find your style till at least you're, for most people. Like
I sound like a really old guy, but whenever I see Trey's style, I'm like, I follow a lot of like younger athletes on social media. It feels like his style is the worst. He's just got bad style.
I don't think he may not have his style yet. We may not know what his style is.
Well, ease into it. Just wear some normal clothes then, and ease into it.
Trey not going for that Travis Matthews sponsorship, says Austin on the chat. Yeah, maybe he's swerving, zigging when Jimmy zags, he zigs. I know once everyone established, like, you don't have to wear a suit for these road trips, like suit up road trip, when these teams are coming off planes, why wouldn't you just wear sweats? What are you wearing the suit for? For the plane ride? You could save $5,000 a trip, whatever they're paying for suits.
If it was cold, I'd have a Travis Matthews hoodie and a pair of jeans and Nikes. Last thing in a million.
It would just be team issue. Team issue. Like the stuff that's in my
0
locker.
point and put on a suit after you're sweaty. Ugh.
So, yeah. The best thing Trey Lance can do, of course, is win a football game. What? You see something you like?
No.
Trey Lance making it rain, and his first 2 starts are in the rain. Says keeping the faith. Somebody on the chat says
it's supposed to rain this week.
Supposed to rain this week. Somebody in the chat said it's supposed to rain in Denver in 2 weeks.
This could get off to is this the football gods like coming after Kyle and Trey? I don't
Making
know
it rain on them,
but yeah.
Yeah, for what? For how they treated Jimmy? I think Jimmy had a sound.
I don't exactly know why, but something's up.
Maybe it's the
3 straight rain games, guy?
Yeah.
In September? That's unheard of. I'd argue if it happens to rain at Levi's on Sunday, that would be fucking pretty nuts. I mean, clearly the meteorologists who always claim like, hey, we miss a lot too. If they are correct and it rains, like that's pretty bizarre. How many rain games have there been at Levi's? Remember last year there was one and it was weird. You're not used to it.
There's also a difference between we got the atmospheric river last year. Remember, there's a difference between what happened in Chicago and like what typically is a Bay Area 8 minutes of drizzle.
Yeah,
there's
if it's consistently raining all game from 1 o'clock to 4.
If it's a legit rain game. All right. So Niners Seahawks. Niners lost both games last year. Niners lost both games by 7 points each last year. Special teams was a major problem. Niners have played the Seahawks 6 times in the last 3 years, obviously. Deebo Samuel's only played in half of those games. So that means that Deebo Samuel has really been, a coin flip when it comes to Seahawks games. And I think one thing is clear, not to go back to Deebo's offseason, but this team would be in major trouble without him. If they're a playoff team, then Deebo is going to be an MVP level player again. I think that much is clear. He's been really good in his Seahawks games, over 100 yards receiving in all those games. And this game, obviously Trey is a big part of it, but to me, the way Geno played the other day, this is not going to be the kind of game where you have to show off your arm strength, I don't think, for Trey, right? It's not going to be about scoring 40 points. It's going to be about limiting mistakes. This game to me is the 2 Ds, Deebo Samuel and the defensive line. DK and Tyler Lockett, Marquise Goodwin. They want to target Hufanga like the Bears did in the second half, fine. But the D-line can make it much more difficult for Geno Smith than his stat line made it look the other night.
Well, one thing that on Monday night, I've always been a believer in this guy, so I get a little joy in watching him bust off some runs. Like we talked about it. Everyone was talking about it while Denver couldn't tackle a soul. Like, that's not going to be the Niners' issue with tackling Penny. Like, if they are around him, he's going to the ground. Now, he might break a tackle or 2 throughout the game, but it ain't going to look run after run. It looked like he was at San Diego State again. So what is Pete going to want to do? Slow down the game, run the ball, and then take deep shots off that? It should be, in theory, and in reality, much more difficult to run the ball for Seattle against this team. And if they can't run the ball, then they become pretty one-dimensional. Where, on the flip side, the 49ers should be able to figure out how to run the ball, which derailed the game on Sunday in a monsoon, right? Their running game was, which you would say historically, with Kyle, when they've been good, when the run game goes, that's when they are vulnerable. So that's not a knock on Trey or even Jimmy. Like, the offense has been predicated because they don't have Mahomes and they don't have Josh Allen, they don't have Herbert. They do consistently have to run the ball at a pretty high clip and be effective when their head coach, who is a run game first guy, is calling these runs. And I would say that's back to your take on Deebo. Like, I wouldn't be shocked to see him keep getting the rock, right?
You're saying even on run plays.
Well, watching Kyle talk about these young running backs, which we've been hammering, like, why isn't Ty Davis Price playing? Well, as Kyle said, like it's more than just running the ball between the tackles for him. Does he know where to line up? And my take always is, as a personnel guy, well, tell him where to line up. Have Kyle tell him where to line up. Like he is really talented. Give him 5 plays.
Kyle Juszczyk. Or Kyle
Kyle Juszczyk.
Yeah.
Like the entire playbook is too much for him. Understandable. It was too much for Jimmy at first. It was too much for Matt Ryan. Like it's complicated. But this guy's really talented, and your drop off at running back is pretty high. So why did Mason dress over Ty Davis Price? Well, where'd Mason go to school? Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's basically Stanford fucking Northwestern. He's probably pretty smart. But like, and special teams, Kyle said, well, I understand that if the guy's going to be a third running back, but you're going to need a number 1 running back. And the one thing Kyle kept talking about when they asked him about Jeff Wilson was like, he knows everything. He's very reliable. And this is where personnel people and coaches butt heads. Like, yeah, I'm sure Jeff Wilson is a great guy, good teammate, knows the playbook like the back of his hand. He's not as good. Like it's just, and that's the balance in the sport of football. Like the difference of being able to rely on someone and having him know, and then him being able to make plays. Like ultimately with Jamal Adams, it feels like Jamal Adams pretty good football guy. Like he understands where to line up. He just has fundamental flaws, right? Can't cover, can't catch. So I bet Pete, like I love Jamal's mindset. I love being able to use him. But like there's just some basic, like, well, football game just becomes football. And then Jamal's back there against said tight end or running back, and he looks lost. You know, so it's like Jeff Wilson, everything beside once the ball is snapped, I bet fucking any coach would love him. Andy, Belichick. But eventually, like, you got to hit the hole. And maybe that was just because of the game, and maybe he'll shut me up. But if it's another game where it's like, God, he's just not hitting it fast enough, guy, that's a problem for this team that all we've said is like, they're going to be like last year's Patriots on steroids. Run the ball down your throat, play D, and hit some bombs. Well, you can't do that if you can't just run basic plays, right, with your running back gashing them. It's that Elijah Mitchell, man. I mean, we've talked about it all week. Sneaky, massive loss.
Yeah, well, you don't want Debo and Trey to be your 2 leading rushers. You definitely don't want Trey to be one of your leading ball carriers. And that's what he was the other day, right? 13 carries. And part of it is the hits that he takes. Part of it is I still don't think he looks that comfortable in anything other than short yardage. And so he's taking big hits, but I do think he feels extra susceptible when he's running the ball because he just is not comfortable yet, either getting down or deciding to run out, or I think sometimes he's searching for a 12-yard gain where there's only 4, whatever it is. Like I went and watched Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes' first starts. I mean, Mahomes' first opener, not the Week 17 game, but the opener against the Chargers, and Josh Allen's Week 2 Charger game. And and they were different games. Like Mahomes, Andy Reid got him a bunch of wide open throws, and Mahomes hit him. And Tyreek Hill was unfreaking believable that day. Tyreek was incredible. Josh Allen was all over the place. He was just fucking
his team's not as nearly.
His team's not as good. Team. Yeah. But one thing that did stand out with both, especially like Josh when he ran, was he knew what he was doing. I'm just running. And that continued Week 1 against Chicago, and we saw some signs of it last year with Trey. Now, again, Trey hasn't played a lot of football. I think the footing that he had in Chicago, the poor footing, the wet field might have contributed to him not looking very decisive. Again, in anything other than the design short game, I thought he looked decisive. But when it came time to try and pick up 8 yards just because nothing was going on, it's just not as smooth, which is fine. 13 carries for Trey Lance. He doesn't avoid the hits. And you just cannot have him be, your second best running back.
You think you judge him more harshly, and just people in general do? I mean, Mark's crushed him. I guess he's a runner, but he's pretty terrible at it because we've seen so many running quarterbacks over the last several years. Like, it's so clear. Like, it's hard to watch a game.
I think it's because we watched him break up. We watched his college tape, and he had some big runs.
How about the one in practice? Remember, like mid-training camp when he took it 80?
Doesn't count.
It's almost like they can't tackle you in practice.
Yeah.
I think part of the problem, guy, is I think there's just an unknown of what this guy does really well right now that people just don't know. At first, like Jalen Hurts. I remember when he was coming out, I'm like, listen, I do not see it as a quarterback. I think you should move him to running back. Now, he has become a much better quarterback than I ever thought, but I watched the Lions Eagle game. And when I say watch, like I was doing other stuff and had him in the background of my iPad. He is an elite runner. And think about it. Where was he a good runner? At Alabama, at Oklahoma. And what did he do immediately well when he got to the Eagles? Run. He's just very natural, and he is closer to Trey. Like Lamar and Kyler have nothing in common with Trey, right? They are like 4-2 guys. They're Marquise Goodwin, but they play quarterback. And then there's Josh Allen, which I'd argue doesn't really have much in common with Trey because he's fucking stiff-arming people like he's Julio Jones or Derrick Henry. Like when he runs, he goes, I am bigger than every single person beside the D lineman, and I'm going to make you pay. So he's even in his different category. Jalen is not running over anybody, and he's not a 4-4 guy. Maybe he could run that if he trained, but like when you watch him run, he doesn't look like he's running that fast, but his play speed's pretty good. But his innate natural skills, and you even said, like, I think it was before we hopped on, it's kind of a natural, you just take off. It's like just a natural element of football. Like you get it when you're in junior high and you just like playing touch football. There are some guys that are just good with the ball in their hands. And typically once they get to high school football, like that's your running back, right? And that's your wide receiver because it's like they're pretty just skilled. And only a small percentage of people have it. And I watched Trey's press conference on Wednesday, and they asked him what the biggest difference is of the NFL and his college. He's like, obviously guys are a lot bigger, faster, stronger. Basically saying like, this is a huge separating element of the athlete I went to now. Like Jalen would say, well, yeah, I was at Alabama every day in practice for 3 years. I went up against, he would just start listing off guys. They're all starting all over the league, right? Have you seen that thing going like, people keep tweeting Bama had the most starters and Bama has the most money in the league. It's like, of course. And then he goes to Oklahoma and he probably played consistently less NFL guys on a weekly basis, but he had trained and probably got to hone his skill. And you just wonder with Trey, like this goes back to what we talked about a couple days ago about Kyle saying it was what Joe Davis said on the broadcast. Like the transition, it was his lack of experience. I think that translates into just basic things of like, he didn't really just get to hammer home his confidence as a runner. Like totally the one, like Kaepernick, for example. When Kaepernick came to the Niners as a runner, he had fucking mastered running the football with the little general, right? You and I had saw him. When I was at Fresno State, I think Kaepernick had multiple games. Both games were over 100 yards against us.
Well,
every single game.
Rusher.
Yeah, but like what his game in college was really predicated on running the ball. Like he came raw passer, but elite runner. It's like Trey's kind of this ball of clay on both ends.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy, wouldn't you say? Because most guys typically like running is the easiest part.
Sure.
Michael Vick was like, I had to learn. Steve Young, I had to learn how to throw. Running was no problem.
Right.
So Trey can't even just separate. Even Russell Wilson early on, like could run around. Deshaun Watson run around. Which is some of these guys that are shitting on him. Like he doesn't really hang his hat on one thing. Like right now, at any moment, even though it might not be what we need, I'll just run for 100 yards. Feels like it'd be hard for him to run for 100 yards.
Yeah, I don't think that's which ultimately is not going to make or break him, right? Like in terms of his career, it's going to be about his ability to throw the ball. He is mobile enough that if he can throw the football efficiently, then he's going to create plays with his legs, create other throws, pick up 7 yards when there's nothing there. Like that's not, I don't worry about it so much as it's just an observation that's one thing that I think maybe he gets better at it, but it's very apparent when you watch that it's kind of something he's not very comfortable with. But ultimately, whether he was comfortable with it or not, I don't want him carrying the ball 13 times. Like that's the point. Whether he's comfortable running the ball or not, 13 carries, which is what he had the other day. It's not, he had the 16 carry game. That's just not ideal because
think about this. If you're
that is what I'm going to do. And that's why Jimmy Garoppolo's sitting over there.
Yeah. I wonder if they're just going to like, this is what he can do right now effectively.
That's what they did with RG3, right?
Yeah. Because I can't have him throw it 50 times a game. 50 would be high, but you know what I mean? 38.
Right.
Which is.
Shouldn't have to this week though.
Shouldn't have to. Yeah. I mean, they're a massive favorite for a reason. Also, short week. Team coming off a huge emotional high. Niners coming off a loss. Like, it's all there for the Niners to come out strong. But it all gets back, like, defensively, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Juszczyk, Debo, like, Trent, like, no worries. Like, this guy just, well, is he going to, like, when the ball's there to hit? Like, can he make the throw?
Yeah.
It's like, well, MIDDLEKAUFF, he led the league in explosive throws last week. Yeah, guys. I mean, we all watched it. 10 fucking points. Like, come on. Let's have a normal conversation. We're not shitting on the guy. We're not anointing the guy, but we can have a normal conversation of they scored 10 points. The other team scored 19. So it's not like they lost 40 to 10. They scored
should have been 21
points. What?
Bears missed 2 extra points. Should have been 21.
Good call.
Should have been an 11-point loss. The Bears covered the Niners line.
And they had the Hightower screw up, which might have been 3.
Look, there are games they will play, like when they play
Patted the grass. It's like, bro.
The
soil is soaked, man.
It's the earth, fellas. I don't think you're gonna get it all. The Rams week 4. Okay, the Chiefs week 7. The Rams week 8. The Chargers week 10. Sneaky Thursday night football. Niners play both of them. Like, those are games where your really good roster is going to have to play really well, and Trey Lance is going to have to play really well. The Seahawks game, to me, is more just a straight-up roster game. Your roster, take the quarterbacks out. Your roster is just better than their roster. So your defensive line, Mooney Ward, right? Nick Bosa, Ayuk and Debo, like, your roster, although they have the 2 receivers, but your roster should just beat their roster. Your defensive line, they've got rookie tackles. 2. Each tackle is a rookie. Like, your team should just beat that team just on roster as long as your quarterback makes no mistakes. But most games aren't like that, right? A lot of games are your quarterback the other quarterback's going to be really good, and your quarterback's got to be good.
Big facts.
Big facts. So, yeah, I just, I think for all the pressure on him, and we'll talk about the pressure, this game actually doesn't require him to do anything crazy. But it does require Deebo Samuel to be Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk, who was the whole offseason was about, not the whole offseason, but the preseason was all about Brandon Ayuk's about to be a star.
Offseason 2, remember, we were going to practice, it was kicking ass.
Yeah. And that's partly Trey, but that's a lot of Kyle. And that's just, I mean, that's
instead of giving him 3 targets, can we give the guy 7?
Yeah, 12 penalties. Can't do that, right? Roster was better than Chicago's. Yeah, it was a bad loss.
Horrendous loss.
That was everybody. I didn't walk away from that game going, Trey Lance cost them that game.
It was the second worst loss of the week when you factor in Dallas lost their starting quarterback.
Dallas lost not worse.
I would say it is when you factor in that Dak shattered his finger.
Oh, yeah. But I'm saying, like, the shame of the loss.
No, Dallas was an underdog in the game.
And I think Dallas is, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I'm only factoring in Dak. If you remove Dak, not that crazy. A lot of people taking Tampa. There wasn't a soul. Even Bears fans were not feeling good, and they won. Awful lot. Embarrassing loss.
Well, the Bears fans that were commenting on our YouTube page were very confident going into the game. One of them said, like, I'll be back. And I was like, I hope you are, in the comments. You're welcome back anytime. Not in the live chat, but I don't know where that person went, but I'm sure they came back, and I haven't looked. So, John, before we go any further, let's tell the people about our friends at ButcherBox. ButcherBox.com/ham. Promo code ham. Hit them with both. ButcherBox.com/ham. Then you enter the promo code ham at checkout. And what do you get? You get to avoid the problem MIDDLEKAUFF ran into at the grocery store the other day. You get free chicken for a year. 2 pounds of free range organic chicken breast for free in every order when you sign up at ButcherBox.com/ham and use the code ham.
Yep, guy, get just what you want delivered right to your doorstep. Free shipping for continental U.S. and no surprise fees. Enjoy a range of high-quality cuts. You get to go to ButcherBox. You and I have had steak. We've had ribs. We've had burger meat. They got it all. And you go there. You can pick. You can put it together. Like I said, delivered to your house. No free shipping, so no random fees. Recipe inspirations. Love a good recipe. Exclusive member deals so you can save big on your favorite cuts, guy. Your favorite cuts. I love ButcherBox. Still eating ButcherBox. Hell, I got home, hadn't been here about a month. Walk in, no food, but I had some Butcher Box in the freezer.
Woo!
Made a chicken last night, dipped in barbecue sauce, was fantastic.
There you go. Like John said, free shipping to the continental U.S., no surprise fees. Get what you want delivered directly to your doorstep. Plus, you can order the grass-fed beef, the free range organic chicken, the pork-raised crate-free and wild-caught salmon. High-quality meat and seafood you can trust. Take chicken breast off your grocery list. Butcher Box right now offering our listeners a deal they've never offered before. Free chicken for a year. 2 pounds of free-range organic chicken breast for free in every order when you sign up at butcherbox.com/ham. That's butcherbox.com/ham and code ham, butcherbox.com/ham.
Boop.
Sean Payton, who he's on Fox. What is he? Is he on like a pregame show? They said Fox.
Yeah, he's on the Fox pregame show.
I didn't get to the pregames last week.
Me neither.
But,
I don't do pregame shows though.
I normally don't. But
Amazon actually is the only pregame show I'll do.
I'll do college football.
NFL wise.
Yeah.
Even before we dive into Sean Payton, do you believe that college game day is even remotely close to as good as it once was? Because I watch a product that was once a 10 that now feels like a 4.
I haven't watched it this year. I haven't watched that much last year, so I can't. I know they had like very high ratings the first 2 weeks, but I'm not sure.
What pregame show you watch?
Well, I didn't actually watch a pregame show this last week. I think I flipped on the Big Noon pregame Texas.
Yeah.
I flipped that one on for a few minutes, but I
like Big Noon Kickoff. I just can't. It's hard for me to look at Urban. But,
but what is it? What's the problem with the ESPN?
Well, I mean, they have a guy that is not in great health in Lee Corso.
So is he on the set again?
Yes.
Yeah.
But he was last week.
They take him off for segments, right?
They move him in and out. I mean, I just Desmond Howard doesn't do it for me. I understand getting Pat, like in theory, trying to get a big star, a little bit like Monday Night Football. Well, it's just, part of Pat is like Pat's the show. When you're in a panel like that, it's not as quite as powerful. Again, you're talking about a guy. I watched 5 minutes because the previous week I'm like, I was out on the show last year when they keep like I think the show's kind of done. I guess is my from my perspective. Clearly, if ratings are up.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. I'll try and watch it this week. It wouldn't surprise me if I tend to find the good stuff like if you watch it early in the morning and you get like a Rinaldi, piece about some kid that's overcome cancer or something like that. Like I love that stuff because it's Wojciechowski.
Yeah.
Well, Rinaldi's on Fox now, but so Gene Wojciechowski does some of that stuff. And
Fox stole him.
Fox, yeah. I love that stuff about game day. Like when you get this
I do too.
Like some running back from Indiana that you would never otherwise like read a story about, and they get some good
I'm not counting that stuff because now they all ripped each other. I'm counting the studio part where they're like talking the games. Like,
well, then they'll go to a side set, and then they hired like a Peloton instructor to. I don't know if she was involved in it, but I assume she's doing like fan interaction stuff. I haven't watched, so I'm not. It wouldn't surprise me if it's more. Is it more like the ABC coverage of the draft than the ESPN coverage of the draft, or it's less?
Yeah, it feels like it's headed that way. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that would not surprise me. I don't know, but I'll watch. I haven't.
The Jack Harlow was.
Did Kirk feel? Did Kirk feel prepared?
It's just when I watch Kirk, I go, hey, it's like if you get in on Facebook early and you write it and you make 500 million, Kirk, you hit the fucking gold mine. If I were you, I'd get off this. I would be like Fowler got off it. I would get off it. Hell, if they allow you to still do the night game and do the NFL game, I would get off this thing.
I wonder if Kirk loves the idea of the NFL, but also doesn't want to go all in if it doesn't work and then he can't get back to college, even though he'd be able to get back to college.
Part of the problem, like
Pat McAfee wants to work Thursday, Saturday forever.
To me, one issue with Pat is like Pat ain't a corporate guy. Pat's just let him cook, let him just do whatever he wants. Like that's what Pat McAfee's show is. So you put him on that, like he is limited on what he can, like it's a Disney production. Pat McAfee is not a Disney production.
But Pat kind of got one of the things he was on ESPN doing college football games, remember? Wearing like jorts.
Yeah.
Remember that? It'd be him and Hasselbeck.
I'm not saying that he can't. Like he's not
but I remember enjoying those broadcasts. I think it was him, Hasselbeck, and Amin, I think. And they were good because him and Hasselbeck would go back and forth. Like, I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? Like, the stuff that makes him exciting, if he just talks football, I bet can be good.
I think they gave him a lot of
football. Like, that's what I want to watch them talk about.
I think they gave him a lot of money. And it was just so much. It was like a kind of it felt from an outsider a little livish, Like, does Pat really need this? He's got WWE, he's killing it. He's making hundreds of millions of dollars. Do they just offer him like, hey, we'll give you $20 million for the season? I don't know. I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass. Because it makes no sense if you're Pat McAfee to do this, unless the number is super, super high.
You know, I mean, Pat is still of the age of people that grew up watching ESPN. Maybe it means something to him. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I guess went to West Virginia, so
I mean, he's definitely broken away from legacy media, as you know. He's in the category of people that understand you don't have to be on ESPN to become rich, famous, successful.
Well, ESPN does not have an entity, I would say, that's
they need him more than he needs them. Right?
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, I'll watch. I've not watched yet this year, but I like when they do picks. But again, I got to feel like everyone's engaged on the picks, and Kirk is probably the one who I feel like is probably prepared for the picks.
And to me, the guy the wild card in the picks, which made it so special, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I haven't watched that much because I find it terrible, is that Corso, it was a pretty big part of the picks historically, which made the show great. And now it's no fault of his own. It's just age and diseases and,
time,
life,
natural progression of time. I know. I find myself, when I watch, sometimes I find myself just in a very human way, hoping nothing. Like
I guess that's part of I find it uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be an uncomfortable viewing.
And it's not about trying to force somebody. It's just, it can be, I just hope he's not like, is he going to say what he wants to say here?
Struggles to
talk. Sometimes you can see Kirk kind of waiting, helping, but whatever. Sean Payton. This is what he said this was Monday?
Yeah, it would have been, because he talks about the Monday night game.
I think there's 7 or 8 teams that we're going to see, not because of injury, we're going to see more than one quarterback play. I think, and I believe this, don't kid yourself, I think at some point we're going to see Garoppolo back in that lineup. So here's the pickle if you're John and if you're Kyle. You drafted this kid so high.
3 first-round picks.
Right? And, man, it's hard to sell to the guy upstairs writing the check that, well, and so our little binky, our blanket is Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Right? But we're going to start this guy. We're committed to starting him. But at some point, if we're not having the rest of the roster is sitting there ready to win. And that was a tough one yesterday, though, for any quarterback.
Sean looks like he's ready to go fly fishing.
He's wearing that old guy brand. Old rich guy brand.
What'd you think?
Well, coming into the season, and it's going to snowball game to game, and after losses, the snowball is going to grow into avalanches like it has this week. The pressure on Trey Lance, we've talked about it, was so much more than the other 4 guys in his draft class. I mean, the other quarterbacks, right? The other 4 guys that went in the top 15. The only guy who has, I would say, any remote pressure of being successful would be Mac, just given that he plays for Belichick and the Patriots. The other guys, if all of the other 3 teams win 5 games, no one's going to care, right? Trevor Lawrence. Now, there is pressure on Trevor Lawrence to look successful, like he has a chance, but actual wins and losses are irrelevant. And when you re-sign Jimmy Garoppolo, this conversation is not possible without Jimmy Garoppolo. So as we've talked about the widgets, these are human beings. And now knowing that you have him to go with. Now, the one area in which Sean is wrong, Jed York is not Jerry Jones or fucking Jerry Buss or John Mara. It has nothing to do with the guy upstairs. Jed doesn't give a shit. I'm not saying that he doesn't want Trey Lance to be it, but if they win, this is not Al Davis and 88.
He's asking, not telling.
Yes, Kyle is telling him to do. Now, ultimately, if Jed wanted to go rogue and fire him or whatever, but in the last thing Jed ever wants to do is have to hire another coach or general manager. So when I hear these conversations, what if Kyle doesn't get it done, and Jed's going to hire who? No, he wants to avoid that at all costs. He would give Kyle an extension right now. Now, from the outsider perspective, the way we talk about it, the way fans talk about it, the way internally players talk about it, the elephant in the room is how much you gave up for him and where he was drafted. But in terms of the ownership's irrelevant, I think. on this whole conversation. But where it's not is all the other stuff. The team force feeding Trey. If Trey had been a 3rd round pick, would Jimmy be the starter right now?
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say yes.
There'd be no rush to develop Trey Lance. You'd be like, yeah, we could just develop him. No one would notice if you developed him behind the scenes. Nobody would care.
What if he had, instead of being the 3rd pick, had been the 38th pick?
Same. I don't think there'd be as much. There'd be no rush.
Given what we've seen out of the player, right? That's what I mean. Even if he had played what he had, 3.5 games, he
would not have opened the season as the starting quarterback. Plus, he'd be cheaper, right? That's the other thing. Not that it really matters for this team, but he would be cheaper then.
This is where I talked about, he's got to, have some moments of just some wow moments. Because, like you said, you watched Josh Allen and Mahomes. Josh Allen was going to a team that was terrible. It didn't matter. Patrick was not. Patrick was going to a playoff team, locked and loaded. And wouldn't you say, and like you told me before we press record today, it's hard to watch a 2017 game and remove knowing what you know. Both these guys are combined $700 million quarterbacks. And, when Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers calls it quits, lock 1 and 2. And they are box office. Everyone rooting for them. They're enjoyable. People wish they played each other all the time, nonstop. It's impossible to do that. But it is fair to say, you watch that Mahomes game, it was pretty clear, God damn, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that game was Andy creating, and Tyreek Hill was incredible. And it is...
But they were throwing, correct?
They were throwing, but they were not... It was not an overwhelming amount of downfield throws. I mean, they hit some wide open guys. And, he took a couple of shots, but it was a lot of just... to me, it's less about wow and more about just having a high floor right now. Isn't that what we spent the whole offseason? Trey Lance's job is just to have a high floor. Just don't be a roller coaster ride. You don't have to be 38 touchdowns or become Josh Allen, but just
but you can't be 19 touchdowns, I think.
No, but I think there's just a natural progression. You playing with the lead, you start winning games, and then there's a natural human thing that's called development where you just get a little more confident and a little more confident and a little more confident. And I think that's how you get there, is not by trying 50-50 throws. It's by just hitting 70% throws, right? Was it the end of the half where they tried to get now again, it's raining. Last week I have a hard time with, but where they tried to get the ball to Debo. Well, I know, but last week was an absurd amount of rain. Where they tried to get the ball to Debo just to set up, some last end of the half play, and he just didn't get the ball to Debo. He just threw it in an uncatchable place. So, I think that the theory coming in, let's remember what the theory coming into 2022 season was. Your roster's really good. Just be just be solid plus, and then hit the plays that are there to hit. And that'll be enough to keep Jimmy Garoppolo on the bench and keep everybody from talking about Jimmy. But the team's got to win. It's just got to be, you got to win, right? Now, there are always going to be, over the course of a season, a handful of games where you got to make plays. And the hope is that you do enough of the basic stuff leading up that when those moments come, you're ready for them. But this week, for all the talk, and you're right, it's not just the talk from us. It's Sean Payton. It's just how people, these are all people. Sean Payton is a person, just like everyone in the chat is a person who just loves football and has a take on football. There's only so many takes you can have, And the reality is that once Sean Payton is in the media and not Sean Payton, the Saints coach, he just says his takes the same way that he said them to his buddies when he was the Saints coach. And they're just as public as my takes and your takes. Ultimately, Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan and that group of players that are in the fight, John, man in the arena, Sean Payton's opinion and Colin Cowherd's opinion and John Middlekoff's opinion, all these opinions are just all of the opinions on the outside. Sean Payton's opinion is no more valuable when it comes to Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan. It's just everybody right now is talking about this. It is the biggest story in the NFL. It's bigger than Dak's injury. It's bigger than some of the teams that lost week one that, like the Raiders. It's bigger than Frank Reich's hot seat, which if they lose to the Jags this week, that's
the Rams' shitty offensive line.
Would you agree it's the biggest story in the league?
It's got to be right up there.
And the struggle with when you're the biggest story in the league is what you really need is just pars. You don't need Trey doesn't need a bunch of birdies and eagles. He just needs pars. But it feels like because of all the talk, that he's like 8 strokes behind the leader. Sunday just started, and he's got to make a bunch of plays. But he doesn't.
But that's where all of a sudden, worst case scenario, you find like you look up, it's like third quarter, and the 49ers are down 20-14, and it's like, okay, I can't just par out and make the cut. Like,
But they're not. But what I'm saying is they're not there yet, even though it feels they're 0-1. Right?
But it can happen fast.
It can.
Because if I tell you just right now the halftime score is 13-7, Seattle. That's just the halftime score. If I told you that right now, would you be feeling good, do you think, at halftime of them winning the game?
I would not. No, they're a 9.5 point favorite.
That's what I'm saying. So back-to-back weeks, 7-point favorite, 9-point favorite. Like, I bet if you added their 2 games up, they have the largest spread of any favorite for over 2 weeks. Like, Vegas isn't just pulling these numbers out of their ass. So their favorite, they have the better team again, and there is just a ton of tangible pressure. And this is where I get why Kyle says this. What's he going to say? Like, it's external noise that actually infiltrates our building, and then we do have to talk about it. And I tell Trey not to listen, and he tells me he's not listening, but I know he's human. He's 22, 23 years old. He fucking checks his phone. I claim I don't check my phone, but I'm 42. Of course, I check my phone too. Right? It's like they can't say that. But of course they're hearing some of these things. It is impossible not to. It's impossible not to.
But isn't it? It doesn't really matter as much as the fact that just Jimmy is right there, right? Like, there's a safety net for Kyle Shanahan that he would not have had if Jimmy Garoppolo weren't on the team.
But I think the Sean Payton is a pretty good example, because you can say whatever you want about Mike Martz, like he's a has-been. Now you can say when he was humming, he knew what he was doing. But let's just throw Mike Martz out. Sean Payton, I think it's fair to say, like, his opinion would not have been any different if I was Joe Lombardi, you were Dennis Allen. Tuesday afternoon, we were in his office talking about our game plan. Feet up. Then we just transitioned to talking about some other things in the league, and we started talking about Jimmy and Trey. That would be his opinion. Him feet up, Saint shorts on, fucking hat off to the side, kind of just after practice, eating their lunch that gets delivered, bullshitting. Is it fair to say that more than likely that, because Sean's opinion was a lot different, it felt like, than Martz, that was like really aggressive. He was just talking like he was talking. Do you think
he also said he thinks 2 quarterbacks are going to play in Seattle and, didn't have Drew Lock's name. Like, I do think there's just, everyone has opinions, whether they're NFL head coaches or just casual fans, and it doesn't mean they're right.
But I think a lot of people think, like, Sean Payton is not alone by any means that thinks Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be seen this year.
Right, but it doesn't mean, my point is the fact that you said it, that I said it, or that Sean Payton said it. When Sean Payton said it, it doesn't make it more likely that happens, because Trey Lance hasn't played yet. More than one game, right? Like, Trey Lance can keep Jimmy Garoppolo on the bench. Everyone after one game is going, oh, I don't think he's going to keep him on the bench, or they're betting on kind of Kyle's impatience, or whatever it is. There's a bunch of different reasons you can say that you think we'll see Jimmy, whether it's Trey related or Kyle related, whatever. But I mean, Sean Payton knows more football than the many, many, many people combined, myself included, and he may be right. But like you just said, he's not the first person to share that opinion. It doesn't mean it's going to happen.
No, I mean, if Trey stays healthy, it shouldn't happen, just because you should try to work it out, even though we've talked about if it's not going well, we all agreed that, like, Kyle will not go down with the ship. So I think what makes this all believable is it's easy to go, God, I could see this scenario. I could see the scenario. I could see the scenario. It's not like these scenarios that are just so out of left field, right? It's very believable things that are being said. Removing Mike Martz, just most of just pretty normal conversations, like a Sean Payton level one or a Chris Sims level one, like, oh, that's believable.
Yeah.
Right? This also,
I mean, at one point in time,
want Jimmy.
Yeah.
I guess that's ultimately why I keep getting back.
But my point is, when we talk about it, we talk about it like it's believable. So this is a real issue they have to deal with, but they may never actually have to deal with this issue. And it may turn out in hindsight that it wasn't real at all. Right. Like last year, they might have gone to Trey Lance if they had lost 2 more games than they did in the middle of the season, but they didn't, and it never became a real issue. And Jimmy Garoppolo played in the NFC Championship game. So
ultimately, if he's able to keep improving through all this pressure, it'll be pretty impressive because it feels like there's a ton of pressure.
But here's what I would say is like, I bet like Josh Allen, when I watched that game back, the way that they talk about Josh Allen was very different than the way that they talk about Trey Lance watching the Chicago game. But that doesn't mean that Josh Allen himself might have felt just as much pressure without everybody talking about it, right? There was a whole bunch of different kind of pressure on Josh Allen because no one, well, maybe it wasn't that different. It was kind of similar. The only difference was Nathan Peterman was his quarterback, but there was pressure in like, who is this guy? Did you guys really just draft Josh Allen? You know, like when you're the number 1 pick and you're the leader of a room full of guys who have been in the league longer than you and are richer than you and just have won more than you and all that, like there's a ton of pressure whether everybody supports you on the outside or not. There's just a lot of pressure, period.
Josh Allen's probably a good example because everyone thought, I don't think everyone thinks Trey sucks. Everyone thought Josh Allen sucked. Like that it was an insane pick.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot, like universally, people thought Trey Lance was necessarily an insane pick. I think most people thought the Josh Allen thing was bananas.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Now, even though Schefter had said the year before, hey, there's this kid at Wyoming who's going to could be the number 1 pick next year. You remember that? Somebody obviously told him that.
Wasn't it the tweet right when the draft ended?
Yeah. It was the year before his draft that Schefter said that.
And then everyone was interested. We all watched him and were like, this is crazy.
Like, whoa. Well, I think I looked it up. I tweeted it the other day. His last 3 college games the stats were just horrific.
Well, for example,
Josh
if
Allen.
Trey Lance had played if there had been the buildup like that, like a tweet like that, ESPN would have found a way to get a couple North Dakota State games just on like Friday night. Like there would have been moments like they did.
Was there a
with
one-off
Josh
game
Allen.
not on ESPN?
It's a great question.
I feel like it was.
Might have been. Maybe ESPN or 2.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was on like CBS Sports Network or something.
Fernando on the pretty shitty game.
Fernando, Montana? No. Somebody in purple. Grizzlies of some sort. Fernando on the stream says, what's with all these sports commentators, specifically these two, walking back every single thing they said after one single game? I'm disappointed in you guys. Are you outrage chasing? Brady had 18 touchdowns and 12 picks his rookie year, but somehow Trey has to do better. You know, the hard part with comments that isn't like a conversation is I have no idea exactly what he's talking about. All of these takes are not black or white, all in or all out. Like we could talk for 7 hours about Trey Lance with a bunch of different takes. And some people would take away from that, we hate him. And some people would take away from that, we're too optimistic on him. So I don't know what to say other than I don't really think of him that differently than I did a week ago. I just know that the reality of the situation exists in a world in which he has to win games. Or if they're 0-2 this time next week because they've lost to the Seahawks, the real conversation in Kyle Shanahan's head is going to be, how long do I let this go before I make a change? Right. Like that's a real thing.
The reality is of what we do, like the majority of industries, information changes. And in this business, it changes every Sunday. Every Sunday we get new information. And then your opinion changes or moves, or maybe you feel better about something, or maybe you're willing to pivot. And as more information comes, you adapt and say your opinion. Like that's what we do. I don't even know what to tell that guy. Like,
but I would even say to you, John, sometimes the opinion doesn't change, but the opinion, it has many layers to it. Some are good, some are bad. Here's what we like. Here's what we don't like. Here's why it could work. Here's why it could not work.
Yeah.
I don't think Trey's performance against the Bears was an opinion-changing game, but it definitely wasn't an opinion, a confidence-inducing game. Like I don't blame him for it.
He scored 10 points.
I don't blame him for it, but I don't come out of there feeling better about it either. Right? Those two things can exist. I don't blame Trey Lance, but he didn't play great. Now I'm
not giving him a fucking A on the report card.
Whatever challenge, throw, completion percentage, whatever it was. Carlos says Trey gets penalized for going to a good team with good roster development, with a good roster. He does get penalized in an expectation standpoint, but he gets helped by the fact that he's on a good team with a good roster.
Well, for example, I was thinking about this when the news today that Jamal Adams is out for the season. I mean, that guy's been hurt a lot. Is it Jamal Adams' fault that Seattle traded all those picks, 2 1s and a 2, then made him the highest paid safety, and he clearly has no business to be treated that, like, one, to be traded for that much, and then two, to be paid at that premium when he cannot cover a soul. Has Jamal Adams always struggled to cover, and now they put him in position? Or is that strictly on Seattle and John Schneider and Pete for making... You never know if it's a good or bad trade till after the fact, but even at the time, people thought, one, it was a lot. Then they got him and were able to see him for a little bit and struggled, and then they doubled down and paid him. And people were like, this is insane, right? Because remember, okay, they made a huge, bold move. Well, once they doubled down on their move, once it was kind of clear he wasn't a great cover guy and paid him all that money, and I saw some people like, feel so bad for him, feel so bad for Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams gets paid. Jamal Adams is fucking highway robbery. I don't blame him for signing the contract. They offered it to him, but like, he's made out like a bandit. He's literally getting paid a premium for a job that he struggles mightily to do. And now that he's injured, he doesn't even have to do it, and he still gets his money.
But
Seattle
wants to do it. Your career is short. I got no problem with somebody saying that.
No, I understand that he wants to play. He'd rather play than be hurt. But my point is, like, Jamal Adams made out like a bandit in this deal. Seattle got destroyed. But is it Jamal Adams' fault, or is it actually Seattle bears most of the blame for the terrible decisions?
They blame all. They get all the blame. I mean, if you told me Jamal Adams was getting hurt because he was fat, that'd be one thing. But that's not why Jamal Adams gets hurt.
What I don't mean give it the blame for getting injured. I mean getting the blame for not being good at his job.
Yeah, or
he's
he's
an average
starting
player.
NFL safety.
I mean, depends on what team. Not every team.
Yeah, well,
I think a lot of teams would say he's probably more of a linebacker. He can't cover anybody.
Well, I honestly, part of me was like, are we sure that it's bad for the Niners that he's missing this game? But
we have. I mean, he might hit him in the helmet. He can't catch it.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a positive. But so what you know? Who's blaming?
Like
Jamal
Eddie
Adams?
Jackson last week catches that ball. Jamal Adams doesn't.
Catches the Jamal Adams ball. The ball hit him.
No, I'm saying Eddie Jackson picked off Trey Lance.
Oh yeah,
if Jamal Adams is the safety there this week in that same position, it like hits him in the helmet, goes off his hands, whatever.
PBU, celebrate.
Yeah,
because that's definitely the case. All right, we got to make some picks. We got to talk about a few other things as well. Pressure on Derek Carr this week. You know, did you happen to listen to Moving the Chains? Bucky Brooks said since 2016, teams that start 0-2, only 7 of them have made the playoffs. But then he made a comment about teams that were playoff teams the year before. So I don't know if that's the exact stat. And obviously the season is 1 game longer than most of those years. So that stat could change. But the Raiders are 0-1. And they're playing a team whose coach said that they needed to focus on the details of practice. The Arizona Cardinals. In a division that looks pretty good. We'll see Thursday Night Football, but most pressure on the Raiders or somebody else? Most pressure on Derek or somebody else? I would put Frank Reich in that category too.
I think Derek has an exponential amount of pressure on him. I can't get over how good Devontae was in that game, how awesome Devontae Adams is. Derek, I mean, part of his maturation as a player was like he's in complete control of the game. So if he throws picks, he might as well just be a bad player. I mean, I can live with interceptions if you make a ton of plays. You can't have 3 picks, 2 in the second half against a really good team. Like that's death. That's automatic death. Playing a playoff team on the road, even though it's probably closer to a Raider home game. I would say for good players, guys that we think highly of around the league, you know, I'd say anyone that's a top 14 quarterback, he had one of the worst games of the week. Just a horrendous performance. I text someone that was involved in the game that just was like, that responded gross. And if you watch him, like, he still makes other good throws, but those picks were, I mean, you were watching it live. I mean, crippling.
Yeah,
right?
Crunch time. Made no sense.
Crippling.
The deep ball didn't make any sense. The other interception, but the deep ball made no sense.
And now
actually, it made sense in the context if he was just trying to force it to Devontae, but that can't be the way they play. There's no reason for it. They got enough other good players.
Cardinals are in shambles, got a ton of injuries. I just think they're not that good. I mean, the Raiders are a big favorite for a reason. There's better. Like, if you told me you lose to the Chargers, I don't think that's that weird. If you tell me you lose because Derek has 3 picks, 2 in the second half, like that's unacceptable. If you're unacceptable for winning, like you're not going to win. And to me, this week, it's like I just think he has a lot of pressure because the coaches, I mean, Devontae, like these guys are here to stay. Obviously, Derek's not necessarily going anywhere, but like part of it is to ingratiate himself to his new coach. I mean, I would imagine Josh had some conversations with Mick Lombardi, his offensive coordinator, when they were in there just in the office together, feed up over some coffee and some crepes or cheeseburgers or whatever the hell they were eating in that Vegas office. We're not too positive. Like this, we can't have this. Because one thing that the New England offense has always been is one making the right play, right? Brady, if anything, got pushed back. Well, he doesn't always he just dinks and dunks you to get death sometimes. Yeah, and it works. Because they, like you said, the one pick to Devontae, they were at the 38-yard line or whatever, driving. They were down less than a score.
First down. Triple coverage. Ultimately. I mean, and Herbert was good, but it wasn't, 24 points is what, it's not like the Chargers scored 38 points to win that game, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Ultimately, to me, Frank, I'm not sure he's a good coach. His quarterback position has been very quiet. Like Matt Ryan might be shot.
It's true, but he wears Carson. And like Carson looked good week 1. Carson's on him, right?
But the owner, if I was defending him now, maybe he was on board too, made them trade him. How shitty he was.
The fact that Carson failed in Indy is on Frank, because that's Frank's guy.
Yeah.
So he
that's
wears
the one
it.
time.
Then the owner says, you were wrong. I'm getting this guy the hell out of here. So then he gets Matt Ryan. Then they tie week 1. Now they go to Jacksonville, who like owns them, and who's 0-1. You know,
2004 haven't won there since 2014.
That's crazy. He's on the hot seat. I'd say, those are probably maybe that and Cliff.
Well, wouldn't you say whoever loses this Raider Cardinal game that is 0-2, it's going to feel like a bad 0-2. Even though if you're, for example, the Cardinals, you lost to the Chiefs where you were an underdog, and then you lost on the road to the Raiders where you were an underdog. Like they haven't lost a game that anyone thought they were going to win. This game, you could say, might be a coin flip. You could argue they have the better quarterback. Time will tell. But there is no disputing that Kyler can have a better game than Derek. How they play over the course of the season. Like last year, would you argue Kyler was the better player? Well, he definitely had a better first half of the year, but over the totality, like he really let you down the stretch where Derek kind of raised his game toward the end. But then in the playoff, Kyler was a 0 and Derek had a pretty ugly moment at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Pretty actually similar individuals, right? Very polarizing for different reasons.
MVP
no one's going to question Derek's work ethic.
Yeah.
I would say that they would top the polarizing charts, those two.
Yeah, those I mean Derek's been doing it longer, polarizing the league, right?
For about, what do you think, about 5 straight years?
I mean, Derek and Kirk. Feels like Derek creates more arguments because everyone kind of agrees on Kirk.
He's like, actually, he's pretty good now. I think
just fine as long as you don't expect too much. It's like going to a 4-star, a 3.5-star restaurant that 3.5 stars. You're not expecting anything. There's arguments about Derek, like, is he 5 stars? Right? And then other people think he's 2. Whereas I even feel like there's some agreement on Kyler. Like everyone's kind of on the same side with Kyler. Like, man, he could be great, but it's insane. Right?
Call of Duty.
Yeah. So, but Derek is like, there's real arguments on both sides of it. And sometimes one side wins, and sometimes, like the other day, the other side wins.
Well, if you're a Derek negativity hater,
defender,
so no, like you're rooting for him to fail because you don't think he's any good. Last week was a pretty good moment for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's also, there's going to be a lot of these games like this in his division where he just goes up against Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson. And
that is his division.
Yeah, well, that's what I just said. I guess he plays 6 games against those guys. And who did I hear saying this the other day? What was I listening to? It was a quarterback, and he was like, I know they say
JT O'Sullivan.
No, it wasn't JT. We was like, I know when you're playing the other guy, like you're not playing the other guy, but you are playing the other guy. Who was that?
Was it Rivers speaking to a high school luncheon?
No. I don't remember who it was. Keep guessing. It was a podcast? No. Sunday, Monday Night Football. Could have been Aikman. I don't know. But regardless, you're not playing the other guy, but you are. Like, it's your opposing starting pitchers. Like, when you pitch against Pedro, you got to be better today. And I don't know, maybe that was part of it. Maybe he forced a couple balls because he's playing Herbert. The thing with Herbert, it's like, is he just not going to throw picks? He's just going to throw touchdowns? I mean, have Keenan Allen. J.C. Jackson's supposed to be back this week, by the way.
No, he had Keenan in that game. Keenan got hurt.
In that game. Doesn't happen this week.
I thought Keenan played in the game.
Oh. All right. Well, regardless, 3 touchdowns. No picks.
He got hurt. He had 4 catches.
When did he get hurt? Early? Late?
I don't know. I don't know.
All right, we got to make a few picks. I actually see a world where the Niners cover, but I'm not. I would not recommend to us that we pick the Niners this week, and neither would you. That's one of those where you kick yourself after the fact.
Yeah, I would not bet on the Niners.
So we considered several games. We've settled on the Panthers plus 2 points going to the Giants, who I kind of liked last week going to Tennessee, but we'll roll with a good defense this week against Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just betting against the Giants. That's to me my logic. Tough betting slate. But the Panthers easily could have won that game last week. The dude hit like a 55-yard field goal to win the game for the Browns. And you know what? The Browns, I think we all agree, independent of their quarterback, is one of the best teams in the league, right? Best rosters is their quarterback situation. So I think the Giants still are one of the worst teams. I believe that about Chicago as well. I mean, I'm picking both those 2 teams to draft in the top 5. So if we just stick with our mindset betting against those teams. Now, how good are the Panthers? Like, I don't feel the Panthers are an 11-win team, but I actually still believe they can get 8 to 9 range. And if I'm taking an 8 to 9 win team against a team that ends up winning 4 games, coming off a loss too, and the other one coming off a win, I kind of like the way it sets up.
Yeah.
They were down 13-0 to the Titans.
Yeah.
Saquon was awesome.
But like you said earlier, should be, good run defense in Carolina. They should have a high floor. But McCaffrey didn't really do a ton, I don't think.
No, he didn't.
So I wonder, like,
snap of the game.
Is he gonna get it back? Is McCaffrey gonna get it back? Ever?
A lot of hurt, a lot of injuries.
Yeah. Fresno State plays USC. As Jake Haener said, I want to go to USC out of high school, but they didn't want little Jake Haener. He averages 350 passing yards per game against Pac-12 schools. That's what Jake Haener's done. He's played 3, UCLA, Oregon, and Oregon State. 2 of them last year, 1 of them this year. Beat UCLA last year. They go to SC,
which was a pretty legendary performance.
It was, I think, the game of the year in college football last year, probably. At least in the regular.
Yeah, he had to be carried off, basically.
He had like a major hip pointer.
Yeah.
Badly injured hip. He was like throwing and falling on the follow through. Remember that? It was
legendary. It was legendary.
It was legendary. I probably undersold it. That they opened to 16.5-point favorites. I think it's now 12.5. You know how many rushing yards Reggie Bush had in 2005 in this game? 294.
Rushing yards alone?
Rushing.
Yeah.
But the Dogs are 12.5. This is a great game. Oregon. Fresno State does not have a turnover this year. They have not taken the ball away either. USC has 8 takeaways and no turnovers. USC is not going to average 4 turnovers a game. I mean, it's just takeaways a game because they're number 1 in differential and takeaways right now in the nation. They're just not going to keep that up. But I think what's interesting about SC is, Lincoln's teams historically are not. I think he had like 1 top 30 defense. Like, it's not really. They win despite it. And their offense right now is, I think if Caleb Williams was draft eligible, he'd go ahead of maybe Bryce Young goes ahead of him, but maybe he goes ahead of CJ Stroud. Like, he could be the number 1 pick in this draft. Jordan Addison's been incredible. You can't turn it over against them, and you have to score because they don't not score.
Do they have like a legit NFL running back, or is it just the receivers he's throwing bombs to?
Yeah, it's the receivers. I mean, they've got a true freshman, Raleek Brown, who is a major recruit. But it's Travis Dye and Austin Jones. Travis Dye from Oregon, Austin Jones from Stanford. Those are their backs. But Mario Williams and Jordan Addison.
Travis Dye was number 24 for Mario.
No gloves, no sleeves, no wristbands. Yeah, that's their back.
He transferred to Lincoln?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
he's
Remember,
from
he
Southern
got
California.
hurt. Didn't he get hurt in the last year for Mario, and it kind of derailed them a little bit?
Yeah. Did he get hurt last year?
I thought one of their running backs got hurt last year at Oregon.
Maybe because they ended up playing like some of their younger guys. But
that is a fucking free for all. These guys just take off. I guess his coach did leave, but
this is gonna be a sweet game.
I like the Dogs.
Fresno State could win it.
There is some value on the money line just because it's very rare that you feel like a team might have a chance, and the money line is close, creeping up to 4-1. Now, it probably was 4-1 when the game opened. It was 16-point spread, so I got to see it like plus 360 or plus 350. If you bet $500, you make almost 2 G's.
Let's see.
Now I would put a healthy amount on the spread, but I think Fresno State, like you said, won the last 2 years. Now it's 2 different coaches, but they're really DuBois was a Tedford guy, correct? Wasn't he?
Yeah.
So it's like, and DuBois really fit the Fresno State, clearly the mantra of being the little engine that could fuck these guys, we'll take them on. Tedford has that in his blood. I mean, he literally went to Fresno State, and then he resurrected a school that, let's face it, beside
Mike
him,
Martz, by the way,
Fresno State guy, has really struggled. The Cal. I mean, Tedford's a big time coach.
Yeah,
I mean, really good coach.
He almost beat SC last time with less talent than they have now. Fresno State.
As someone who's seen a lot of devastating Fresno State losses, the two of us, I don't know if this would wash them all away, but this would wash a large percentage. It'd be top 2 or 3 biggest regular season win in the history of the program.
Yeah, I mean, the tough thing, the 05 game had been SC was the #1 team in the nation, and it was near the end of the year, right? So there was so much buildup by the time you got to
like a November 1st game or
it was weird.
October game?
It's really a weird non-conference. They must have played. Yeah, I don't remember exactly why that was the case, but this is earlier, so there's less buildup to it. Fresno State was ranked 16th in the nation. They were 16th, right? Then.
Is Oregon State ranked this week or no?
No, they should be, but
yeah, I agree.
But they're not. But they play SC next week. Oregon State, SC next week, Washington State, Oregon next week, and Washington State, But anyway,
it's hard because the teams aren't the same. But Oregon State did kick USC's ass last year. Completely different interim coach, but
yeah. DM says 55-38 USC, take the over. The over is 79, 72. What is it? It's massive.
It's high.
Again, like these teams,
75.
It might be one of these. SC scored 5 drives, 5 touchdowns the other day in the first half against Stanford. But Stanford moved the ball on them. They just didn't score. But Stanford, they moved it. They just couldn't score. Whereas Fresno State should be able to score. Hainer, man. And they just played Oregon State last week, so they're kind of warmed up for it,
Go Dogs.
So, all right, y'all. Thanks for hanging with us. We will see you Sunday after Niners-Seahawks. What's our Sunday night game this week?
Bears-Packers.
Is it? That's the Sunday night game?
Bears-Packers, yeah.
Oh. We have a Monday night doubleheader, Titans, Bills, Vikings, Eagles.
A little weird, but
yeah. Our morning games, Dolphins, Ravens. Yeah, watch that. Colts, Jags, Bucks, Saints, Panthers.
Not a great slate this week, but
Pats, Steelers. Okay.
Stay up late Saturday night. Enjoy the SC game.
Tito's Mountain Dew Baja Blast, says Jesse on the stream.
Might need that to stay up. I mean, 7:30 kickoff. I mean, that game's going till 11.
Yeah.
Especially if it's good. I mean, yeah, 11:15. Oregon State game went past and I fell asleep.
Was that a 7:30 or an 8? Maybe it was
7:30.
7:30. Yeah. All right. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. Later.